Whew. People were pretty mean to me last week, Mr. Rivers, and all I did was dare to place a one-loss Alabama above Georgia in the JP poll. They were even meaner when they touted Saturday's game in Athens as a showdown of evenly matched teams, a showdown of programs that mirror one another. And all I said is, no, they aren't, and no, they don't. 4 quarters and a 4-touchdown loss later. I haven't heard from those folks in the last 48 hours, but I don't even need to show you highlights. This is what I want to show you to validate my reasoning. This is pregame Saturday. Alabama takes the field for warm-ups. Here comes Georgia. All those hype videos, the Beat Bama billboards everywhere, all the jumping around and trash talking. Basically, all the things Georgia focuses on too much instead of focusing on what it actually takes to win. That's still not it, though. If you want my impression of these two programs summed up in about 30 seconds, here's Nick Saban and Mark Richt, each talking about that incident afterwards.
I thought it was, actually thought it was kind of mild, quite frankly. But, you know, guys get excited. They jump around, get fired up and all that. But, you know, thankfully it didn't turn into something real stupid, but I didn't think much of it, really.
Even when we started jumping around out there in pregame, you know, I got really pissed. All right, and I said, all right, we're going to go through this again. All right, we're going to be emotional and not be able to execute and do what we're supposed to do. That's not who we are. So we're focusing on playing football and doing our job. And they settled down and did a good job of that. So I think it does go a long way to establish an identity, but that's something that you develop a reputation over time.
Georgia is not Alabama. Some people can't get comfortable with that fact. Because the fact is, Georgia is in a group with the rest of the country. There isn't another program that has measured up to Alabama, not just this year, over the past number of years. But you look at it. You go out there and you bring a coordinator in with ties to Alabama, and you bring the strength coach in with ties to Alabama, and you bring all the support staff in with ties to Alabama, and you try to model your program after Alabama. It is not Alabama because you don't have that guy over there.
Before I get to my point, I've heard individuals today on the radio say that Mark Richt is soft.
Yeah, they did.
And players don't respect him because of the 2 personal foul penalties that they received. And I just want to say that's the most uninformed, ridiculous statement I've heard in a long time. Now, my ultimate point is that Georgia is still a national championship contender. I picked Georgia on this show to beat Alabama. Not shy about it, don't care about being wrong. Alabama was clearly the better football team. But let me ask you this, Josh. Georgia's no longer undefeated, right?
Right.
Did you and I have Georgia going undefeated this year?
Nobody did.
Nobody did, right? We had them at least losing 2 games. I know I did. You might have had them losing 1 more. So when I look at Georgia, losing to Alabama hurts because it's a team you want to measure yourself up to. I understand that. But you still got Kentucky, Florida, and you've got Tennessee in front of you.
Nick Saban, Lane Kiffin, it turns out they knew what they were doing after all with that offense. And I know this is crazy because these guys are clueless when it comes to football. And all those Alabama fans, you know who you are, about 90% of you actually, lined up to question the play calling and the decision making. You know, now it's all of a sudden in vogue for everyone to say, what's our identity? Where's our identity at? They chose to work on that passing game, and it was very ugly at times early on in the season. But then all of a sudden, Saturday comes around. How many picks did Jake Coker throw?
0.
How did he look in this game overall?
Great.
Looked very effective.
And when you look at their Ole Miss game, that was probably the bottom pick game for Alabama. You don't see Alabama turn the ball over like that, and this was their ceiling game. Now, in my opinion, they're going to fall somewhere in between this year. And the truth of the matter is, as well as Alabama played this year, A&M, Ole Miss, and LSU are still ahead of them in the West. I'm not saying it's going to end that way, but that's the mountain that Alabama has to climb. So the progression of Jacob Coker and those receivers is paramount because you do have a lot of work to do in the SEC West right now.
Why is the fact that Florida beat Ole Miss shocking to everybody?
Because people didn't watch this show and listen to what we had to say.
Obviously. Who'd you pick in that game?
I picked Florida.
I did as well.
Word.
And did you give reasons why?
Most definitely.
I did as well. So I don't view this as shocking at all. You can view it as a mild upset because of the Vegas point spread. But if you watched that Alabama game with Ole Miss and you chose to look at more than just the final score, then you understood that kind of performance isn't sustainable. I mean, that's not the kind of thing you're going to take on the road unless you plan on being +5 turnovers every single week, which I think even an idiot out there understands is not going to happen. Then you knew eventually you're going to have to be able to run the ball. You're going to have to play defense. And here's a dirty little secret about Ole Miss. For as great as they are and explosive as they are up front, that secondary is a little vulnerable. This was not a big upset, though. Number one, Florida's just flat out good. And number 2, Ole Miss's offensive line was a train wreck. People don't want to dig into it, though. They want to look on the surface and see, Ole Miss win in Alabama. They beat a top 5 team, so, you know, they're great. They're great. The AP tells me they're great, so they're great. you have no clue what you're talking about. If you've allowed those 3 games, I'll say this, to dictate your opinion on whether Butch Jones is the right guy or not for that program, I can't really respect your opinion on it to begin with.
Is the Big Ten deserving was my last point, and I don't even have to spend a lot of time on that point because everybody already knows the answer.
Nope. We'll be back. Football Nightly down south. Wide receiver Duke Williams has been dismissed at Auburn.
Gone.
Probably coming a little bit too late over there, but he has been dismissed at Auburn, and we're going to spend no time on this because the guy doesn't deserve any time dedicated to him on this program to be talked about. The right decision, albeit a little late, but never too late to make the right decision. So long, Duke Williams. Go ruin someone else's program. Those shots at the Big Ten. Our pal Johnny Buckets is here tonight. And right over there, you don't get to see it, but there's a small square window. And when you made that comment, he was fogging up the glass over there, just peering in. The thing that surprised me the most, and you and I both have a ton of respect for Georgia's offensive line.
Yes.
Alabama reestablished, flat out reestablished the line of scrimmage all night, 2 yards into the Georgia backfield with 4 guys.
Most definitely.
That's all it took. Played 2 deep the whole night, was able to completely control the game up front, bringing 4 guys.
And people said Georgia's offensive line hadn't played a D-line like Alabama's, and I agreed. And I said Alabama hadn't played an offensive line like Georgia's. And I still feel that way. They just handled their business. Yeah. And when you can handle your business with 4 men up front, it makes your secondary better because they don't have to be on an island one-on-one. Subtle things like that make a big difference. And those linebackers, Reggie Ragland, man, I might wear number 99.
Reminds me of a young Jonathan Rivers, I'll tell you that.